on a day, but please stick with me for 20 slides. Unit Class 2. Now, Unit Class is developed by a collaboration of all the institutes. So if you search for Unit Class on Google, you'll come to this website, which is CPI, and it's RIBA, RICS, ICE, CIBSE, all collaborating together to give an open data classification structure for the UK. But the problem currently is Unit Class isn't unified and change is needed. When demonstrating change, I thought I'd put this slide up from Ratatouille, where the small rat's talking to the older rat saying we need change. And so you can't change nature, but nature is change. I like that I watched this film with my kids. Change is needed. And sometimes you don't like change, but with Unit Class, change is needed. And I'll give 3 reasons why. The first reason is it's lots of tables that are unrelated. We have a table for elements, a table for systems, a table for products. There's a complete disconnect between infrastructure, civils, and buildings. And the third reason is not ready for BIM. So let's look at this first reason, dispersed systems and products. Table G, talking about internal walls. It's got classification 252. Completely unconnected is Table J, which talks about systems and products. Talking about plasterboard is Table J, K10. No logic, just 2 tables that have been stuck together. Even worse, when I look at buildings compared to civils, you've got Table G, which talks about systems, so luminaires. Table H for civils is talking about lighting with a completely different classification. Same with the products. Now in a big civil engineering project like Crossrail, you've got 2 systems which don't talk to each other. They need to be brought together. And because these tables were done in the early 80s, it's not object-based. It's based around producing bits of paper, what you see on the left. Not producing objects that break down into smaller objects, that break down into smaller objects. So change is needed. Why am I talking about this as MBS? Well, 2 of my MBS colleagues, Sarah Delaney, who's a member of CIBSE, she's secretary of CPI, and John Gelder sits on the International ISO 12006 committee, looking at international classifications. So playing a big part within that CPI team. Now let's look at the first of the integrated tables. It talks about complexes. So whether it's a university, housing estate, in this example, I look at a collection of sort of holiday homes, restaurants, sports centre, there's a classification table for complexes. You go down to the next level, you get to the building itself, or the entity. It's deliberately called entities, not buildings, because it also covers tunnels, bridges, rail, and road. So we go from complexes to entity with the same logical classification codes. Table EN, in this case a single-story restaurant. Then you break your entities, in this case a building, down to activities. So what activities do you want to do in the building? Just like we were talking about in Table 1 earlier today. So you might have some dining, public dining, changing areas, areas of worship. And then you break the building down even further. Start to get more and more detail, and we have tables for elements. So walls, floors, ceilings, and tables for spaces. Both very important classifications when you're looking at your building's use in terms of space, or your building's use in terms of breaking down the costs into the elements. We go down further, and we start looking at systems and products. An example here is system, a collection of products, a wash basin, with the taps, the plug, the waste, and an individual product, proximity sensor. So we've got integrated classification system from the highest level, the complex, down to the product. And there's one very special table in Unit Class 2, and that's the work results table, that combines all of the other tables in their mapping, allowing you to combine documentation you generate from your BIM together, whether it's coming from the central model and say bills, or central model and specification. And at the top of that work results table is the mapping to the complexes, the entities, the activities, the spaces, and the elements. And this is true for buildings and infrastructure. So a fantastic resource here, once linked to the COPI object definitions, is really going to make the UK fly over the next 2-3 years. Where is this at the moment? You can go to the consultation pages on Unit Class, but also a fantastic RIBA resource, which is the visualization tables. Come to the site and you can search it, you can explore it, and then you can put your comments up to the Uniclass committee. This one here is run as a TSB funded project from a chap called Stuart Chalmers. You want to Google BIM Gateway if you want to explore this particular site. As I think the previous example showed complexes, this is showing elements. And this is ideal for the UK BIM strategy. If you look at Kobe, it's about objects in a structured format, whether those objects are the entity itself, or in this example, the spaces being classified by Uniclass 2, or the systems and types. And what are the benefits? If I was doing this presentation, normally you'd see these circles pop on the screen, but small benefit at a practice level, sort out your practice. Bigger benefit across a project, but if you own a large portfolio of complexes and buildings, a huge benefit, because you're structuring your data, you're classifying it correctly. And finally, slide 20, deep breath, summary, coherence between tables, buildings and civils, and a classification structure for the UK that's ready for a BIM world. And that's me finished for the day. It's time for a beer, and I'll hand over to Claire.